Good evening, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the south. We'll fight to the bitter end. With just days until another strike, rail guards take their battle to Westminster. But what does it mean for long-suffering passengers?
Stripped of its contract following a catalogue of complaints, a controversial patient transport service is told its service is no longer required.
When a day's work goes like a bomb, we join the divers clearing Portsmouth Harbour in readiness for the Navy's new aircraft carriers.
And conquering the Isle of Wight, how this high-flying family earned a place in the record books. Good evening. We will fight to the bitter end. That was the uncompromising message from the RMT Rail Union today as it took its battle with Southern Trains to a new level.
It made the pledge at a rally seeking national support to safeguard the jobs of train guards. And as hundreds demonstrated at Westminster, one commuter won the legal right to challenge Southern for increased compensation for poor services.
Well, under existing rules, passengers can claim back half the price of a single fare if a train is more than half an hour late.
The full fare is refunded if the delay is more than an hour, but that could now change. For more, here's our transport correspondent, Mike Pearce.
Southern Rail, Southern Rail, Southern Rail.
A national protest in support of the Southern Guards. For months they've been striking at the centre of a bitter row over changes that will mean drivers closing train doors. This week we'll see more strikes on Friday and Saturday. Well, the RMT said this afternoon this will be a fight to the bitter end. Meanwhile, those strikes at the weekend, Friday and Saturday, will of course seriously affect tens of thousands of people going to the Lewis bonfire event on Saturday, a move that's defended tonight by the RMT.
Whatever we do, we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. We're taking industrial action to try and get a resolution to dispute.
But it can't be right to hurt ordinary people going to a fireworks display.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we've put a whole host of suggestions to the government and to Southern to try and resolve this position.
As pensioners, we say we need the guards because it's going to protect our safety when we have to use the rail system.
As many trains as today have a second person on board, will have them in future. So this is certainly not about cutting jobs and it's not about cutting corners. This is about giving customers much better service.
Meanwhile, one commuter has won a court victory that could lead to extra compensation for those affected by the recent chaos. Sergi Christo says he was forced to move from Surrey to London after trains became so busy he couldn't get on them. As we found earlier in the year, these conditions are suffered on a daily basis. Mr. Christo has now won the right for a case to claim extra compensation. He says the company have failed under the Supply of Goods and Services Act. He's demanding £500 and the hearing will be held in the new year.
The trains were sent at less frequent intervals and fewer carriages, so it came to the point when it was actually impossible to board. I just couldn't get in.
So now you're going to court to try and get this compensation. Why is that important for you and what do you think it could mean to other commuters?
It may open floodgates to some cases when people are not being compensated under the current regime. I feel honoured in a way that my small claim, my small case seems to represent such a huge number of people. And if I'm successful, then it won't be just my victory, but everybody else's.
Mike Pearce, ITV News, Westminster.
Staying with the railways now, and a new nationwide campaign to encourage rail users to be extra vigilant in reporting any unusual items or activity has been launched today at London's Waterloo Station. It's been compiled by the government, police and the rail industry and emphasises the vital role the public can play in keeping themselves and others safe.
This is not in relation to a specific threat, but of course the United Kingdom has been within a severe threat environment since November 2014. However, we have to keep this level of awareness at the forefront of our travelling public and mobilise their eyes and ears, hearts and minds to ensure the safety of our users.
Look now at some of the day's other news. A motorcyclist who killed a pensioner when he collided with him on a road in Weymouth has been jailed for 6 years. Mark Dalgleish hit 87-year-old Christopher Dursley as he was crossing the Preston Beach Road.
A man involved in a 4-hour standoff with police in Portsmouth has admitted 8 charges of criminal damage and assault. Ben McCready, who's 26, hurled roof tiles from the top of a row of terraced houses in Stamshaw at the weekend. He's been bailed and is due to be sentenced later this month.
The funeral of a boy who died following a collision with a car while on his way to school is to be held next Monday. The incident happened at Canford Heath in Poole 3 weeks ago. The 7-year-old's only been identified as Toby. The funeral will be private, but the cortege will pass through Adastral Road from 11 a.m. for those wishing to pay their respects.
The controversial patient transport service Co-Performer, which has been at the centre of criticism for delays in taking patients in Sussex to hospital, has lost its contract.
Well, the company took over non-emergency hospital transport in April, but following a series of complaints and problems, thousands of people signed a petition calling on the NHS to end its links with the company. Andy Dickinson has more.
Within days it had been labelled a disaster. Co-Performer, the first private company to be handed control of non-emergency patient transport in Sussex. Dialysis patient Sarah Worley speaking to us in June after she missed 3 out of 4 treatments when her ambulances failed to arrive.
I think somebody's going to die. It's just been horrific. There has been no organisation whatsoever. They've just let patients, they've just left them hanging.
Now, after 7 months of misery, the controversial company is to be stripped of its contract. All of Sussex Care commissioning groups agreeing to let it go.
We apologise for the difficulties that patients and staff have found themselves in. The service remains very fragile. In addition to that, Co-Performer have contacted the CCGs and informed us that whilst the service has improved, it's now uneconomic for them, and we have agreed that we will work through an exit process with Co-Performer on this contract.
It's extremely good news. It's been a very, very long campaign, and we've known from day one that eventually the CCGs and everybody else involved would get to this decision.
Since April, patients, including some with cancer, have faced delays, missed appointments and even operations. The service was also plagued with financial problems, relying on contractors who complained they weren't being paid. Protests were followed by a debate in Parliament.
The service has improved, but what's been absolutely clear is this model does not work. There are too many different parts to it. When one bit fails, the whole thing fails.
The current provider in Hampshire and Oxfordshire, the South Central Ambulance Service, will now take over, bringing patients back into NHS hands and using many of Co-Performer's drivers. Unlike Co-Performer's takeover, however, this will be a phased transition, lasting no more than 6 months, but a transition perhaps that for many can't come soon enough. Andy Dickinson, ITV News, Lewis.
Motorists faced lengthy delays on the M27 and M3 early this morning after a crash involving 6 vehicles between junctions 13 and 12 on the M3 northbound carriageway near Eastleigh. Traffic was delayed for up to 45 minutes.
New flights from Bournemouth to Poland have been announced by Ryanair, the twice-weekly service to Krakow as part of the new winter schedule. It also includes new services to Faro, Gran Canaria and Malta.
Visitors to Winchester this Christmas can expect easier parking. New arrangements are being introduced following traffic problems over the past couple of years as the city's festive events, including the ice rink, have increased in popularity. Park and ride opening times will be extended and more parking marshals will also be on duty.
You are watching ITV News here in the Meridian region. We're delighted you are. Thank you so much for choosing us. Coming up,
from an extraordinary artist to an extraordinary art collection, some of David Bowie's most expensive possessions are about to come up for auction.
As always, for more on all of our stories, head to itv.com/Meridian. Any views or news, give us a call please, 0808 1010 095, the number to ring. Or you can get in touch via Facebook, or if you prefer, send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
A new report highlights an acute shortage of trained nursery teachers across the south, with huge differences in the numbers providing the best skilled staff.
Well, the report by Save the Children says the most disadvantaged backgrounds risk falling behind and will never make up lost ground.
Well, in Bracknell Forest, 313 children are being taught in privately run nurseries with early learning specialists. That's out of around 1,200 children. On the Isle of Wight, it's 623 boys and girls out of almost 1,900.
Yes, in places like Brighton and Hove, more than 2,500 children are in independent nurseries with early learning teachers, and that's 75%. With more now, Wesley Smith.
The joys of getting in a spin at playtime. But this is also the time when these children's brains are developing at their quickest rate. It's now when their key language and communication skills are forming. But a report by the charity Save the Children says nursery education is not a level playing field.
There's a real danger that as more children come into the early childhood system, they're going to be cared for not by the qualified teachers they need to help them overcome their learning disadvantages, but by carers who, whatever their concerns for children, don't have the qualifications and don't have the skills to close these very large disparities in our society between the richest children and the most disadvantaged. We don't want early childhood centres to become holding pens for parents who are going to work. We want them to become learning hubs.
The charity says if you've failed children by the age of 4, you've failed them for life. It wants every nursery to have qualified early years teachers. That's the case here, and is one of the reasons parents choose it, in spite of a waiting list of 250 for around 30 new places a year.
It's easy to think that it is simply cuddling the kids and changing the nappies. I think there's an awful lot more goes on in modern nurseries. But in terms of what's available for us, it was important to have people who are fully qualified and able to deliver an education with it.
In 2014, 2,300 people applied to work in schools like this. Last year, it was just 860. The Save the Children report calls for the recruitment of 10,000 more trained teachers for independent nurseries, similar to the ones here. Annetta Noe has taught here for 12 years. Like a number of her colleagues, she came to the UK from Eastern Europe.
Working with young children, especially in early years, is not easy. It's very rewarding, but it's a lot of work. But it is difficult because obviously the salary is different for early years sector than it is for primary sector, so that's one thing. Another thing will be the holidays, because we are a daycare, so we are open 51 weeks a year.
The Department for Education says it's developing a strategy to remove the barriers to attracting, retaining and developing staff. It says it's investing a record £6 billion in childcare by the end of this Parliament and is looking at a fairer funding system, so money goes to the areas that need it most. Save the Children says all children should be given the potential to make huge strides in their development and says only more investment in independent nurseries can provide the essential building blocks for our children's future. Wesley Smith, ITV News.
Well, we're joined now by Neil Leach from the Preschool Learning Alliance. Mr. Leach, thank you for talking to us. Now, some people watching this might think all children need at nursery is lots of love, cuddles, fun and play. What do you say to that?
Well, I think love and cuddles are an important part, but it's not it in its entirety. A good practitioner will make sure that children realise their potential, that they discover through play, that they involve them. So, yeah, I like love and cuddles, but it isn't everything.
Can you explain briefly what the difference between an early years teacher and a school teacher actually is in terms of qualification and training?
Well, the needs of a 2 or a 3-year-old are significantly different from that of a 13 or a 14-year-old. So, of course, the focus has to be different and the mechanism for, if you like, involving children has to be different. But the biggest difference actually in England is the salary. Early years professionals, early years teachers are paid a fraction of what qualified teachers working in schools are paid, and there's no real justification for that. So I would suggest that's the biggest difference at this particular point in time.
So is recruitment an issue or is it funding?
It's both, because with inadequate funding then you struggle to recruit. But the reality is that we've been battling and battling for years because we have a position in this country where early years provision is grossly underfunded. Just about everybody who's looked into it, done studies, research, will tell you that we have a poor position. Until that improves, we're going to struggle with the recruitment of teachers.
We send our children to school so young compared to other countries. This is just getting them into the education system even earlier. What evidence is there that it's good for them?
Well, children do benefit from socialising, but we are more concerned, if you like, less with their formal education, but giving them the ability, I suppose, to learn and develop. And it does worry me that in this country we seem to be sending children to school at a younger age compared to our European counterparts. And we seem to be also depriving them of the opportunity to be just that, children, and that is of great concern.
Neil Leach, thank you so much for talking to us. Some news just in, and detectives investigating the sexual assault of 2 children at Legoland Windsor this summer say they have arrested a boy. 2 6-year-old girls were assaulted in the Pirate Shores area of the resort on August the 11th. Thames Valley police officers say they questioned a boy this morning in connection with the attacks. He's been released on bail until December the 2nd.
Police say files remain open in the case of missing teenager Damien Nettles, who vanished on the Isle of Wight 20 years ago tomorrow. The 16-year-old was last seen in Cowes. The final sighting was in a fish and chip shop in the High Street. He was identified on CCTV by his family, who made regular appeals for information.
A firefighter from Dorset has spoken of his honour at being guest at this year's Daily Mirror Pride of Britain Awards. The event celebrates the achievements of people who make the world a better place. Tom Newton from Blandford Forum was voted ITV Meridian's Fundraiser of the Year for his work in setting up a charity rock festival in memory of his brother.
I think it's been completely overwhelming, to be honest. To be in a room with so many people that are so selfless and not here for themselves, and to receive such recognition is it's an absolute blessing and an honour to be part of it, for sure.
And you can see the highlights from the Pride of Britain Awards here on ITV tonight at 8 o'clock. Get your hankies ready, Barbers.
They're always emotional.
Now, they're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have just 30 minutes to respond to an emergency. And in the last year, the Navy's bomb disposal teams have responded to hundreds of incidents.
Well, what's added to their work has been the dredging of a new channel into Portsmouth Harbour. That's meant having to destroy 3,500 tonnes of high explosives, as Richard Jones will now explain.
November the 27th, 2015, and their busiest year in recent times began in spectacular style when a 1,500-ton German mine was destroyed off the Isle of Wight. Since then, the Navy's bomb disposal teams have been called out to more than 20 other incidents linked to a £30 million dredging project going on around Portsmouth. The work will see 3 million cubic metres of clay, sand and gravel removed from 2 miles of the harbour to make sure the channel is deep enough and wide enough to take the Navy's new aircraft carriers. The first, HMS Queen Elizabeth, is due to arrive in early summer next year. But her home port was the target of sustained German attack during World War II. Hundreds of thousands of bombs rained down on the city and the sea surrounding it. Some of them are still there and are now being dredged up. 2 were found in September and hit the headlines because they caused disruption around the harbour itself. 1 was destroyed off the Isle of Wight, but with a whimper, not a bang.
The boys did make the device safe and are now currently picking up the pieces out there from the seabed.
One of those pieces, the tail cone of the bomb, is now out of harm's way at Horsey Island in Portsmouth. It's the base of the Navy's specialist divers, who are also bomb disposal experts. And this is where they train. Once a bomb is discovered on the seabed, a team is sent out to investigate. When they're sure it is a bomb, it's taken to a safe area for disposal. First, a diver has to attach a tow bag.
Once he gets down to the item with this bag in tow, he'll lay this on the seabed next to it, secure a strap around the item, and at a given time this will inflate, bring the item to just below the surface.
The device is then towed to a designated area of the Solent, where a diver will go down again.
Once the charge is secured onto the mine, the diver will come to the surface where the dive boat will retreat to a safe distance. We'll put a simulated cordon in place for safety and then we'll initiate the charge.
Disposing of bombs at sea is a specialist business and one that does have risks.
We try to keep the risks as low as we possibly can. I mean, bomb disposal operations do carry a certain amount of risk, as do diving, but we are very well trained in order to ensure safety of both ourselves and, more importantly, the public.
The Navy's divers also work around the world, often in time of war. Many have died on active service, the most recent in Iraq, and they're remembered at this recently opened memorial garden. But they hit the headlines when their work is closer to home. And with dredging around Portsmouth due to go on well into next year, it's highly likely they'll be in action again. Richard Jones, ITV News, Portsmouth.
Well, the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. Let's now get a preview to London. Mark Austin.
The Chancellor says we'll strike back against cyber attacks. He promises billions to tackle those who threaten our security. The battle for an Orgreave inquiry is lost, but the fight goes on, say campaigners. And honouring the courage of 4-year-old Tilly, one of the prides of Britain. Join Charlene White and me at 6:30.
Thanks, Mark. Now, a family of high flyers have made the record books after kite surfing around the Isle of Wight. Now, the bridges all compete internationally and are often seen at the same event, competing against each other.
Well, they're now hoping the sport will feature in the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Andrea Bishop has been talking to them about their hopes for the future.
When your mum can do this, it's clear she's pretty unique. Steph Bridge taught herself to kitesurf at 30 and is now one of the top 3 women in the world. She juggles that with training her 3 sons, who are also high flyers.
My role is not only mum, but it's also really coach, I guess. We've always been a really close family, so in fact it's quite normal that for me that they were going to get into water sports because they really pretty much sailed before they could walk. We can all do it as a family and we all really get on well and share experiences and share opportunities.
And this summer, one of those family times was smashing 3 world records racing around the Isle of Wight.
It was quite a big challenge. It's this massive iconic yacht race that millions of people all over the world just know about, and there we are with this little kite and this little board and going around, and I'm kind of trying to keep up with the boys and they're really putting the pedal down, and in fact they actually went off into the distance quite a long way. So I was like, I wonder which one's going to make it first, and I kind of thought that Ollie would have made it first, but he would have made it had he not hit a sandbank, and then his brother Guy just sort of creamed on past him and beat him, so it's quite a good story.
Beaten by just seconds, but it's all good. The only eye in Team Bridge is the one in family.
I guess there's a lot of competition between us and sort of drives us to push each other more.
You learn off other members of the family, so if you see them doing something else, you doing their trick.
Because we all do it together, it makes us closer as a family too.
A decision on whether kite surfing will be included in the 2020 Olympics is expected in the new year. And if it's a go, I've no doubt Team Bridges will be flying the flag, or should I say kite, for Team GB. Andrea Bishop, ITV News.
Well, let's hope so. Now, he was the face of Ziggy Stardust and Major Tom. Who could forget the iconic singer David Bowie, who died this year? Well, the people of Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire want a permanent reminder of him, and they've already raised thousands of pounds for a statue.
Yes, Bowie performed Ziggy for the very first time in the town back in 1971. But it's his extensive art collection that's making the news this month, as it comes under the auctioneer's hammer on November the 10th and 11th. Conservative estimates say it could fetch around £14 million.
Wow. Well, one piece of artwork called Carrying Mistresses is by Berkshire's Sir Stanley Spencer. Now, he lived in Cookham, near Maidenhead, and is buried in the churchyard there. The estimate for that work, would you believe, around £70,000. Well, at the auction house for us today, Kevin Ashford.
The very public face of David Bowie, the performer. Less well known, until now at least, was Bowie's private art collection. The music icon, who died in January, built up a huge array of items that are now up for auction. 350 lots valued at between 10 and 14 million pounds.
I don't know whether he was at all concerned with value, because I don't think he sold anything. And to my mind, that's the best kind of collector, the collector who buys and looks and keeps. The idea of just doing it for investment, I think, is rather depressing. And I think he did it really for an absolute love of art.
I think he went through various sort of changes. He was sort of like a chameleon in his music and his fashion and tastes. I think that reflects him very much so. It's challenging work, but you can't help but look at it. It's quite striking, and it's fun. It's meant to be a bit of fun and to be enjoyed.
Kate Jatavian helped Bowie build up his art collection. She says the singer loved to surround himself with what he'd bought.
He lived with his collection, so he had homes, and he would enjoy having the pieces in his homes. He lived amongst it, but not in the same way as there was no interior decorator that put things on the walls for him. They were his objects in his office, on his floor, propped on a side table. It was part of who he was.
Now, ultimately, this is a collection that's being sold off. So how much would you need to own a little bit of it? Well, there are cheaper items, but this one is valued between £2.5 and £3.5 million. You're going to need very deep pockets. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
What a collection. Very interesting to see what he's put together. And the collection is on display at Sotheby's Galleries in New Bond Street in London from today, and you have until the 10th to have a look around, and it's all to give fans, historians and collectors to really appreciate what he amassed over the years.
You also need a fair amount of money, would you not?
You do. I know if they said 14 million, conservative estimates. I think it will go for a lot more.
We shall see. We shall also see what the weather's got in store, because here with our forecast for us this evening is Amanda Houston.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Hello there. Well, compared to yesterday, it has been feeling much cooler across the region today, and that trend will continue as we go through the next few days. So day by day, we'll be getting colder and colder, especially at night, and we'll be seeing some frost forming in places. Now, the reason for the current setup is all down to this. We've got an area of low pressure out towards the east of us and high pressure here in the west. And what that's doing is it's drawing in cold Arctic air, northerly airflow, bringing in those chilly temperatures. But on the plus side, it will be drier and brighter air, so we are hopeful of plenty of sunshine, especially throughout tomorrow. Now, for the rest of tonight, we've still got a fair amount of cloud around for a time low. Overnight, we'll start to see that cold front sinking its way southwards. It's going to push all of the cloud out of the way, and clear skies will be developing. What that means, though, is going to be very chilly tonight. Look at the colours on the chart there, down to 3 degrees in many places. In fact, rurally, could get even colder than that. So we are expecting a frost in places. So, of course, that's going to take us into a chilly start to the day tomorrow, but there will be stunning sunshine right across the region. Perhaps a bit of cloud bubbling up at times as we go through the afternoon, but for most of us it is going to be a dry day, but with that northerly airflow, disappointing temperatures. We're looking at highs there, 11 degrees, that's 52 in Fahrenheit. So here are your tide times for tomorrow. Then we've got high tide at Portsmouth at 4 minutes past midnight, and then again 18 minutes past at 12. So looking further ahead towards the rest of the week, then it is remaining on the cold side, turning unsettled from Friday onwards, and we will be seeing some rainfall at times. See you later. Bye-bye.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
And just time before we go for a word about tomorrow night's programme. Now, sheep worrying has long been a problem, but now it's taking on a new dimension. We'll be speaking to a farmer who noticed a flock of sheep being deliberately harassed by a man with a drone.
Yes, he believes the pregnant ewes could easily have lost their lambs. Well, now the National Farmers Union is calling for a law restricting the use of drones near livestock. More on that here on ITV Meridian tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
In just a moment, we've got the ITV Evening News tonight with Mark Austin and Charlene White.
I shall have our late news, so do join me if you can. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much indeed for watching. Thanks for your company as always. See you tomorrow. See you later on tonight.
Bye-bye.